4 months of relentless work, and my reward was history in the making. 2 Super Bowl tickets earned, not given gone before I could even touch them. What my boss didn't know was that I had a playbook of my own. I had been running on caffeine and sheer determination for the past 4 months. Late nights, early mornings, weekends spent in front of spreadsheets instead of out with friends. All for one project, an account so massive it could redefine my entire career. And finally, it was done. The client was thrilled, the presentation had been flawless, and the contract was signed. But the best part, the reward? I sat at my desk row reading the email for what must have been the 10th time. Adrian Cole. You went above and beyond. Consider these a personal thank you. The office hummed with fake congratulations. But Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. Enjoy the game attached was the confirmation. 2 Super Bowl tickets, 40-yard line front row experience. My heart pounded. I had never been to a Super Bowl before. And as a lifelong football fan, this was beyond a dream come true. My hands shook as I printed the email, double-checking the details. The client had sent the tickets directly to my boss, Robert Fowler, the senior partner at my firm. It made sense he handled the logistics for client gifts. I imagined the dottant he'd walk into my office, flash that rare smile of approval. And every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Quiet moves win loud victories. Hand them over with a well-earned Adrian Cole, except that dottant never came. Instead. 3 days later, Robert strode into my office without knocking, the smug arrogance he always carried somehow. Amplified, he leaned against my desk like he owned the air I breathed. I heard you got some great news, he said. I smiled, expecting him to finally hand over the tickets. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I put everything into that project? He nodded, almost amused you did. Which is why I wanted to talk to you about the tickets. Something about the way he said Adrian had played the long game before and he was undefeated. This time, the scoreboard would read differently. Talk sent a chill down my spine, right? I said carefully. Robert exhaled like he was pretending to be the good guy in this conversation. He's the thing Adrian Cole clients don't really understand. Corporate hierarchy, they don't always know how we operate when they gave you those tickets. Well, that was really more of a gift to the firm, not just to you. I felt my stomach tighten. No, I said slowly, keeping my voice calm. The email explicitly said they were a personal thank you to me. He waved that away like it was a minor detail. I get that, but in quiet moves win loud victories. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. This business, it's about relationships. And sometimes we need to make strategic decisions, so I'll be taking the tickets. The world felt like it tilted on its axis. I blinked what I already made arrangements. I'm taking a potential investor to the game. It's a smart play for the company. My heart pounded against my ribs. This couldn't be real. Months of exhausting work, countless sacrifices, and he was just taking them. That's not fair, I said. My voice carefully measured, trying to contain the storm raging inside me. The client gave. This time, the scoreboard would read differently. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Them to me, Robert smirked like I was some naive child who didn't understand how the world worked. You should be grateful you have a job, he said smoothly. That's the real reward, his. I swallowed hard, gripping the armrests of my chair. This wasn't just about football anymore. This was about principal respect, a line that shouldn't be crossed. He patted my desk like I was some obedient pet. I'm sure you understand, and hey, don't worry, you'll have plenty of others' opportunities. I forced myself to breathe, to blink to stay in. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. Control, then I did something that surprised even me. I smiled, not a real one. No, this was the kind of smile that had teeth hidden behind it. Well, I said, voice perfectly smooth. Enjoy the game. He grinned, satisfied, and strolled out. Like he'd just done me a favor. He had no idea how much fun Monday would be. The didn't. Robert walked out of my office, my fake smile dropped, my hands clenched into fists beneath my desk, my nails digging into my palms. He really thought he could get away with this. I sat in silence for a didn't. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Quiet moves win, loud victories. Forcing my breathing to slow, I couldn't afford to react emotionally. No, if I wanted to get back at him, I had to be smart and lucky for me. Robert had just handed me the perfect opportunity. I pulled up the original email from my client and read it again. My pulse quickened as I formed a plan. The key to taking Robert down wasn't confronting him directly. That would get me now. Was no. The best way to do it was to let him destroy himself. I sent a quick text to my client. Hey, just wanted to say thanks again for thinking of me with those. Adrian had played the long game before and he was undefeated. This time the scoreboard would read differently. Super Bowl tickets. It turns out they were given to someone else. At my firm, hoped to catch up soon. Less than a minute later, my phone buzzed. Are you kidding me? Who took them? I smirked. This was going to be good. I played dumb. Not sure, honestly. I just know I never got them. No big deal, though. No big deal. Those were meant for you. Let me handle this. Say nothing, bingo. I leaned back in my chair, my heart still pounding. But for an entirely different reason. Now, this was no longer a battle between me and Robert. This was quiet moves win loud victories. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. A battle between Robert and the client. And I already knew who would win. I spent the rest of the day suddenly gathering intel. I knew Robert wouldn't be able to keep his ego in check. He'd have to brag to someone. Sure enough, around lunchtime, I overheard him in the break room. Yeah, 40-yard line seats going to be insane. Taking a big fish with me, you know how it is. These kinds of deals are all about relationships. I stayed out of sight, biting back my laughter. The arrogance, the stupidity. By the time Friday rolled around, the office was buzzing. Robert was. This time the scoreboard would read differently. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Leaving early, boarding a flight that afternoon to the Super Bowl city. He walked around like a king, smug and untouchable. I caught his eye in the hallway. Big plans this weekend? I asked, keeping my voice light. He smirked. You know, just making moves, enjoy the game, I said, and I meant it. Because by the time he landed, the trap would already be in place Saturday morning. I got an update from my client. I've arranged a meeting for Monday. Just play along. Trust me? I grinned. Oh, I trusted him. Sunday came and went, and with it, the Super Bowl. I didn't. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. Watch a single second of the game. Not because I wasn't still a die-hard football fan, but because I was waiting for Monday. The real show was about to begin. Robert strutted into the office at 9:07 a.m. Sunglasses on, coffee in hand, radiating the smugness of a man who thought he had won. He barely acknowledged me as he passed by my desk, heading straight to his office. I waited until the 9:30 a.m. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Quiet moves win loud victories. Meeting invite popped up on my screen. Subject client review, mandatory attendance location. Conference room. A attendees, senior partners, Robert Fowler, client representative, Adrian Cole. I clicked accept time for the show. I walked into the glass-walled conference room and immediately felt the tension. Robert sat confidently at the head of the table, legs crossed, looking relaxed, but his confidence wavered when the client walked in. He wasn't alone. A man followed him. Someone I didn't recognize, but his presence sent an immediate shockwave through the room. The client took. Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. This time, the scoreboard would read differently. His seat this is Andrea Holloway, VP of Corporate Partnerships. Andrea gave Robert a sharp nod as he sat. Robert blinked. Oh. Of course, Andrea. Nice to meet you. The client leaned forward, his smile polite but ice cold before we get into today's agenda. I have a question, Adrian. Cole, did you enjoy the game? The room went silent. I tilted my head. Figging confusion. The game, the Super Bowl. I furrowed my brow. Oh, I didn't go. The client's expression darkened. That's strange. Because I personally arranged for you to have 2 seats right. Quiet moves win loud victories. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Robert froze. A flicker of panic crossed his face, but he quickly forced a laugh. Yeah. See, this was a bit of a mix-up. Adrian Cole wasn't able to attend, so the client cut him off. So, who did? Robert shifted uncomfortably. I took a client. The client let the words hang in the air. Andrea cleared his throat. Robert, just so I understand, are you saying that you took corporate seats for an employee as a personal gift and gave them to someone else without authorization? Robert swallowed. The client wasn't done, you know. I was really looking. This time the scoreboard would read differently. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Forward to seeing Adrian Cole at that game, I thought it was a fitting reward for months of hard work. But imagine my surprise when I learned he never even got them. Robert opened his mouth, closed. It opened it again. Andrea turned to me. Adrian Cole did. Robert informed you of any corporate policy that would have required you to surrender those tickets? I shook my head, keeping my voice even number. He just told me they were his now. The room tensed. Andrea exhaled sharply. Robert, you do realize that you not only violated internal ethical? The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. Standards, but also committed. What is essentially corporate theft, correct? Robert went pale. The client leaned back, shaking his head. I don't think I can continue working with someone who would undermine his own team like this. Robert jolted upright. Wait, let's just... The client turned to Andrea. I trust you'll handle the internal response. He nodded, his expression unreadable. Effective immediately, Robert knew he wasn't just in trouble, he was finished, and I just sat back and enjoyed the show. Robert's silence stretched across the conference. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Quiet moves win loud victories. Room like a noose tightening around his throat. His face, usually smug and full of arrogant confidence, was now a shade of red that teetered on the edge of panic. Andrea, the VP of Corporate Partnerships, leaned forward, folding his hands together. This on the table, his voice was smooth but laced with authority. Robert, you do understand what this looks like? His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. He understood. The client exhaled, shaking his head. This isn't just about the tickets, Robert. It's about trust, about professionalism, about knowing that when Adrian had played the long game before and he was undefeated. This time, the scoreboard would read differently. I choose to work with someone they're not going to screw over their own employees for personal gain. Robert's jaw clenched. His fingers twitched against the table. He looked around, searching for an ally. But this were none. The other senior partners, who had been silent up until now, exchanged uncomfortable glances. No one wanted to be associated with this mess. I sat still, hands folded neatly in my lap. I didn't smirk. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The silence stretched until finally Andrea spoke again. Robert, did you expense anything? Quiet moves win loud victories. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Related to this trip, he blinked, when he tilted his head slightly. Did you charge the flight? The hotel, any meals? Any transportation to the firm's account? The panic in his eyes was answer enough. The client chuckled under his breath. But this was no humor in it. You use company funds to take someone else to the Super Bowl with the tickets meant for Adrian Cole. Robert tried to pull himself together. He sat up straighter, cleared his throat, and forced a thin smile. Listen, I understand how this looks, but I was thinking about the firm I was. This time the scoreboard would read differently. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Cultivating a relationship with a valuable investor. The client cut him off. What? Investor Robert blinked. Excuse me? The client leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Who exactly did you take to the game? Robert's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. Andrea tapped his fingers against the table. Robert, answer the question. He hesitated. His mind was scrambling for an excuse for any way out of this hole. I already knew the truth. Robert hadn't taken an investor. He hadn't taken anyone important to the company he'd taken. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. Brothers-in-law, a man who had zero business connections, no potential deals, no reason to be at that game others than to drink overpriced beer and enjoy the best seats in the house, and Robert had expensed every penny. I could see it on his face. The realization that this was no way out of this. The client shook his head. Unbelievable. He turned to Andrea. I want it noted that my firm will no longer be conducting business with Robert Fowler moving forward. Robert snapped his head up. Wait! That's not, the client continued, as if every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Quiet moves win loud victories. Hadn't spoken if you would like to assign a different senior partner to handle my account. I'm open to discussing that. He turned to me, or, quite frankly, I'd prefer to deal directly with Adrian. Cole moving forward, I managed to keep my expression neutral. But inside I was screaming with satisfaction. Andrea nodded. Understood? He tapped a few notes into his tablet. Robert, we'll be handling this internally. I suggest you take the rest of the week off while we review the situation. Robert's face drained of all color. He opened his mouth to protest, but Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. This time the scoreboard would read differently. Then he saw the expression on Andrea's face, on the client's face, on everyone's face. He was done finished, and he knew it. He stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor without another's word. He stormed out of the room, the glass doors swinging shut behind him. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, the client turned to me. His expression softened. Adrian Cole, I want to apologize. I should have made sure you got those tickets personally. I shook my head. You had no way of knowing. And honestly, I glanced at the door. Robert, quiet moves win loud victories. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Had just walked through this, worked out better. He chuckled. I like the way you think. Andrea smiled, then slid a document across the table. Adrian Cole, since you're already the one doing most of the work on this account, I'd like to formally offer you a promotion. My breath caught. A promotion. I stared at the document in front of me. A significant salary increase, more authority, a title that put me on par with the very people who had dismissed me before I swallowed. Lifting my gaze to meet his says, Are you serious? He smiled, absolutely. You've more than... This time the scoreboard would read differently. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Earned it. I exhaled, a slow grin spreading across my face. Then I accept. The client stood extending a hand to me, glad to hear it. And Adrian Cole. Yes, next time I get Super Bowl tickets, they'll be sent directly to you. I laughed, shaking his hand. Robert thought he stole my reward instead. He handed me everything I ever wanted. And the best part, Monday was just getting started. By the time I walked back to my desk, the entire office was buzzing. People were whispering, side-eyeing me, side-eyeing Robert's empty chair in the corner. Office news traveled fast in. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. Corporate circles. And when a senior partner stormed out of a conference room looking like he had just seen a ghost, people noticed. I sat down, trying to suppress the smirk tugging at my lips. My inbox exploded with emails, congratulations, messages of support, even a few shocked, what just happened? Pings from colleagues who had only caught bits and pieces of the drama, and then a text from Robert Fowler. What the hell did you do? I stared at it for a second before typing back. Me not sure what you mean. I thought you were making moves. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Quiet moves win loud victories. Waited no response. Of course not. I let out a slow breath, glancing at the newly signed promotion letter on my desk. I had won, but Robert wasn't done with me yet. Robert's last move, an hour later, I got the email subject. HR meeting, immediate attendance required. I clicked it open. Adrian Cole, please report to HR immediately. This is a mandatory meeting. I frowned. Robert wouldn't go down without a fight. I grabbed my notebook and made my way to the HR office. The receptionist barely made eye contact before gesturing toward the glass-walled Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. This time, the scoreboard would read differently. Room in the back. Inside, Denise from HR sat at the conference table looking uncomfortable across from his Robert. He didn't look smug anymore. No. This was a cornered animal trying to claw its way out. Denise cleared his throat. Adrian Cole, have a seat. I did. Robert leaned forward, fake concern dripping from his voice. Adrian Cole, I really hoped we wouldn't have to do this, but I need to bring up a very serious issue. I raised an eyebrow, which is, he sighed dramatically. The firm has been reviewing some of your recent communications and quiet moves, win loud victories. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. We have reason to believe you violated corporate confidentiality by discussing internal business matters with an external client. I blinked. Oh, this was the play. Denise glanced at me, then at Robert. Robert brought this concern to us this morning. Of course he did. He was trying to flip the narrative, trying to paint me as the problem, so he could salvage his career. I tilted my head. And what specific confidential business matters are we talking about? Robert folded his hands on the table. The emails you sent regarding the... This time the scoreboard would read differently. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Super Bowl tickets. That was an internal issue. Adrian Cole, and you took it directly to a client. I let out a small disbelieving laugh, right? So you're saying that a gift meant for me, personally, which was then stolen, is now considered an internal business matter. Denise flinched at the word stolen. Robert's jaw twitched. I wouldn't call it stolen. I cut him off really, because the client did in front of everyone. Silence, I leaned back. This isn't about confidentiality. This is about you getting caught, and now you're throwing a... The office hummed with fake congratulations. But Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. Tantrum, because this were consequences. Denise let out a careful breath. Robert, I understand your concern, but after reviewing the situation, I don't see any actual policy violation on Adrian Cole's part. His head snapped toward his. Excuse me. He glanced down at his notes. The client was the original sender of the gift. He had the right to ask about it. Adrian Cole did not disclose private company strategy financials or trade secrets, only the status of something that was personally his. Robert's face darkened. So that's it. You're just going to let us get away. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Quiet moves win loud victories. With Denise straightened in his chair, Robert. Let's be clear. You're the one under investigation, not Adrian Cole." The words hit him like a slap. He started, but Denise cut him off. "The expense reports are being reviewed. The client has formally withdrawn their partnership with you. And now, after everything, you're trying to retaliate against an employee who was just promoted by the company." And Robert had nothing left. Nothing to say. Nothing to fight with. He had lost Denise's side standing. "Robert, I need you to leave the room. Adrian Cole, you're free to go." Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. This time, the scoreboard would read differently. I gethised my things, not even looking at him as I stood and walked out. By the time I got back to my desk, an email had gone out. Effective immediately, Robert Faulkner is no longer with the firm. We wish him the best in his future endeavors. I read it twice just to be sure. And then for the first time all day, I let myself smile. Robert was gone and I had won. But the best part, this wasn't just a victory for me, it was a warning to every others. Arrogant, entitled boss out. This: never underestimate the people you think are. Quiet moves win loud victories. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Beneath you, they just might be the ones to bring you down. The office was strangely quiet after Robert's abrupt departure. Oh, people were talking. Whispers in the hallways, stolen glances in the break room. But no one dared to say anything out loud. The weight of what had just happened was too big. A senior partner had been taken down in front of everyone, and not by another's. Executive not by another's. Man in a suit by me. I sat at my desk rereading the official company-wide email announcing Robert's termination. His name was already. This time the scoreboard would read differently. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Scrubbed from the directory, his office had been locked, his belongings already packed by HR. It was like he had never existed. That should have been enough. But this was still one more thing to do. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to my client number. He picked up on the first ring. "Adrian Cole," he said. Amusement laced in his voice. "I assume you've heard the news?" "I have," I said, keeping my tone light. "Figured I owed you a thank you," he laughed. "Oh, don't thank me. Robert did this to himself. You just gave him the rope," I smirked. "Well, I appreciate you handling." The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. Things so publicly, this was a pause. And when he spoke again, his tone was carefully measured. "Tell me something, Adrian Cole. Are you happy staying? Wish you are." That gave me pause. "What do you mean?" "Well, let's look at the facts," he said. Casually, "You were the one actually doing the work. You were the one who built this account. The firm promoted you because they had to, not because they wanted to. And Robert's departure, that was your doing." I sat back in my chair, absorbing his words. "I'm going to be honest with you," he continued. "I don't like your firm. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Quiet moves win loud victories. Tolerated it because I liked working with you." I blinked. "Oh, a chuckle. Oh," he repeated, amused. "So let me make this simple. I want you to come work for me." My heart skipped. "You've already proven yourself," he said smoothly. "You're sharp, strategic, and you don't let people walk all over you. That's exactly the kind of person I want, leading my business strategy team." And of course, he let the silence stretch. "I'll double whatever your firm is paying you." I nearly dropped my phone. Double, not a small raise, not a slight bump, double my salary. Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. This time, the scoreboard would read differently. Swallowed. "That's a big offer," he chuckled. "It is, and it's only fair." I hesitated. This was happening too fast. I had just gotten one promotion. Was I really about to throw it away? And then I thought about it. I thought about the years I spent being undervalued at this firm, about the times my ideas were taken and repackaged by men like Robert. about how the only reason I had been promoted was because a scandal forced their hand. Did I really owe them anything? No, I didn't. A slow smile spread across my face. Send me the offer, I said. I think quiet moves win loud victories. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. I'm ready for something better. By the next morning, my resignation letter was printed and signed. I walked through the office, my head held high, ignoring the surprised whispers and the not-so-subtle looks of admiration. Denise from HR. HR looked genuinely surprised when I handed his the letter. You're leaving? He asked wide-eyed. I nodded. Got an offer? I couldn't refuse. He glanced at the paperwork, then let out a low whistle when he saw the salary. Damn, he muttered. Well, I can't blame you. I smiled. It was time as I packed up my things a few. This time the scoreboard would read differently. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Co-workers stopped by to congratulate me. Some were shocked, others weren't surprised at all. And then, just as I was about to leave, I got one last message. A text from an unknown number. Robert Fowler. Enjoy your little victory. You just got lucky. I stared at the words for a long second before typing back, me luck had nothing to do with it. And with that, I walked out for the last time. A year later, I stood in my corner office overlooking the city skyline. My name was on the door, my team respected me, my salary was more than I had ever imagined. The office hummed with fake congratulations, but Adrian's eyes stayed cold. Adrian had played the long game before, and he was undefeated. And best of all, I was finally working for people who valued me. I scrolled through my phone and saw an industry news alert. Former executive Robert Fowler files lawsuit against former firm claims wrongful termination. I laughed. He was still trying to fight a battle that was already lost. I placed my phone down, leaning back in my chair. Robert had spent years stealing credit, walking over people, taking what wasn't his, and in the end, he lost everything. I, on the other's hand, had gained everything. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. Every handshake from Robert felt like a fumble he'd soon regret. Quiet moves win loud victories.